I'm back with corporate recruiter Carly Hazen to get her take on a trend job seekers are running into more and more, and that they probably don't like that much, right? Yeah. The weird curveball kinds of questions employers like to throw out in an interview, and I have heard some really funny ones. Yeah. The article we spotted was in Fast Company magazine, and it spelled out the toughest interview questions and how to answer them. Questions that could throw anyone looking for a job off guard if you're not prepared for them. So, Carly, going back to work, if you're a mom going back to work or a young adult, how prepared should we be for these kinds of questions?
Very prepared. They're becoming more and more common. I know, and there's some doozies out there. I've heard some that I'm like, how would anyone answer that question? But it's great because what they're trying to identify are a couple things. A lot of times, it's not so much how you answer the question or what you're saying, it's really kind of how you answer. They're looking for nonverbal cues, how well you think on the spot, how well you deal with something on the fly, or being flustered or nervous or pressured. So a lot of that is about take a deep breath. The more odd the question is, the more time you should be allowed to actually think it through. So think about it and have a little fun with it. That's what they're meant for.
Is that the best idea? I mean, should you? You probably should think about it, because I asked the question this morning about someone, Trader Joe's said, what about a freezer, or a penguin in a freezer? And I thought, my initial response would be, I know what I would do. I would dart out the door and never come back.
But I am someone who folds like a lawn chair under pressure.
Just so you know, in case you were wondering, this is me.
Let me put that out there.
This is me in real life. Okay, so you have a few questions for us. Question number one, if a coworker had an annoying habit and it hindered your quality of work, how would you resolve it? How do we answer this?
So that's a really important one. That's not so much about you and your personality, but how you would maybe deal with in a real life situation. And it could be really important because they may be asking you that as a foreshadowing of there's some difficult coworkers in your division. How would you be able to handle them? So a great way to answer that is to take a moment and pause and even provide an example where maybe this has happened and say, you know, I'm someone who takes a great deal of pride in my work, so anyone that's hindering me being able to do my best in an organization, I would absolutely want to deal with. And I would deal with them directly. And I would deal with them in a very positive, but also business-like and straightforward fashion. First of all, I'd ask him to meet me in the back, you know, somewhere that's a little bit more private. We could have a cup of coffee. I would explain my situation and ask them to help me seek a resolution. Maybe, you know, in the past, there was a situation where I had a coworker who was playing music loudly, and I was under deadline, and I said, you know, this isn't helping me concentrate. And they said, well, the music actually helps me concentrate. So we kind of visited about it, and I kept asking them to help me seek a resolution, so nothing felt forced. And eventually they said, why don't I wear some headphones? Boom, taken care of. No one had to move to executive management. But I do think that the ability to be direct with the people you're working with is extremely important. And the ability to really build your own rapport and communication and trust so that you have an understanding that the two of you can get through these tricky situations together and they don't need involvement with anyone else.
I love that. Great point. Just going right to the heart of the matter. Question number two, how do you explain a vending machine to someone who hasn't seen or used one before?
Oh.
Dying to hear your answer. This was a real question.
Okay, so I remember how the article answered it, but I would like to say that I think that the reason something like this could be asked, a lot of times in an interview, especially for highly technical or engineering type of roles, what they want is to hire someone who understands how to explain highly complex and technical topics to people who maybe aren't as technical. So they're understanding, they want you to understand something in such a simplistic fashion that you can explain it to everyone without being overly simplistic and condescending. It's a tricky line to walk here. So for a vending machine, you can say something like, imagine a mini convenience store where you can access drinks or snacks at any time. If you're in an airport or in a subway station and you're thirsty or hungry, you'll be in luck if one of these are nearby.
So this is really a way to showcase that you're relatable and able to relate to people. Okay, question three, who in history would you want to go to dinner with and why? The killer!
Who would you invite?
Okay, well, my gut reaction is Joan of Arc, which seems a little...
See, but what they want is, like, what does that represent about you? So why that individual?
Always, you know, she's a woman who lived so long ago in a time when it just wasn't acceptable to do the things she did. She really stood out, and I've always admired that. So getting to know, like, what was she really like as a person? What's her personality? What were her flaws? Those kinds of things.
Exactly. And if you know who you would invite, and maybe it's like a rock star and you aren't quite sure if that's appropriate, think about the place that you're interviewing and understand these questions will count for or against you. So if you're interviewing at a tech firm, maybe go with a safe answer. Steve Jobs, right? Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg or Sheryl Sandberg. If you're interviewing with a financial firm, you could say Warren Buffett. I'd love to pick his mind about investments. So you can take a safe route.
Tupac.
If you're interviewing for fashion,
Okay.
Oscar de la Renta, exactly. But if they really want something more about you, maybe tell the truth and see where it goes. Great conversation topic.
Perfect. Thanks so much,
You're
Carly.
so welcome.